Well, gosh, Tracy, thank you for that introduction. And I want to thank everyone here for inviting me today. It's such a pleasure to visit with a group of farmers. There's nobody that I love more in the world. What you do is incredible. Your grit, your innovation, and what it's taken to get here for you is something that we should celebrate. And I'm going to say, I think we need to do a little more bragging, like the governor says, about what you do. This is going to be kind of a wandering presentation down memory lane. I think that the productivity and the increase that we have seen in just several generations is very taken for granted in today's world. So on my husband's side, yes, he's a fifth-generation rancher in the Sandhills. On my side, fourth-generation farming in the Platte Valley. I was underprivileged. I grew up in town in North Platte where my dad was an implement dealer. So I've been going through some old photos, and I just found a few, and I wanted to spark some memories and make a few comments about agriculture today and where things have gone. So, you guys are growing a crop that I think is going to shape the future a little bit. So I want to take a little look at the past, and we'll look at the future too. So this is just a few generations ago. This was on my grandparents' farm, and you guys have taken a crop that was known as a fallback crop, and I know that's not sorghum or milo. My grandpa grew milo. So that's corn. But you've taken a crop with sorghum. That was kind of the fallback crop. That's what it started as. And you have turned it into a powerhouse. In just how many short generations? What was it in the 50s? Tim's here. Maybe you can tell me what the average yields were in the 50s. Was it 30 bushel range? Okay. And where are you today? Triple digits? That is an incredible story. A sideline player for livestock feed, and now, like we saw this morning, you can start an ethanol plant. It can be the main feedstock there, and it's not waste. It's byproducts. It's co-products, just like we talked about. That circular economy, I think we're going back to old school production, because I can guarantee you these people didn't waste anything on the farmer ranch. You couldn't and survive. And I think we're going back to that, realizing that we can't afford to waste things anymore. And we're looking for every single use that is going to be more efficient for a modern world. So the other thing about sorghum that I think is interesting, and I think you're really well positioned now, is you've heard about the Maha Moms and RFK. You are going to make America healthy again. I mean, you have a crop that is incredibly flexible and versatile. Here's another picture, just as things progress, harvesting. And then we go here, and I included this picture. I was talking with Mr. Bish a little bit ago. As I said, my dad was an implement dealer. Well, this was one of the first twin rotor combines. So that was on my grandfather's farm. And once again, it's not milo, it's wheat. I don't have any pictures of his milo crops. I wish I did, or at least I couldn't find any. But I've been accused of not sharing enough personally. So since I was with a group of farmers and with a group of friends here, I thought I'd share a little bit. And I want to tell you a story about that day that this would have been in the very late 70s. I think the twin rotor was invented in 75 when they had the first ones. This was one of the first prototypes in Nebraska. And my grandparents' farm was 12 miles from town, and it was on dirt roads. And not only was it a bad day for me, but it was a bad day for my dad, because that first prototype when it kind of blew apart on him. They didn't really get a finish. So he wasn't having a good day. That's actually my car from high school. And I probably was driving a little too fast, and I put it in the ditch that day. And I'll never forget, we didn't have cell phones then, of course. I was only a mile from the farm. I almost made it, and I walked in. But my dad was really good. And I guess that's something that we all need to remember is things aren't always going to be good. And so be good to your kids when they screw up. But this was just this fall, my husband and I, my niece got married, and she wanted to use it for the car when they left the church. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's vintage. So these were actually my grandparents. And when we think about how things have changed, I mean, actually it's my great-grandma, you know, that's 3 generations. We're going from pumping water, we're going from using horses, and look at where we've come. This is actually home for me. This is in the Sandhills. So less than 100 years ago, this is where we were. And we have every advantage with modern transportation now for your crops to go to processors and for us to get everything out. So we have to continue to tell that story. This is my husband's grandparents. Great-grandparents again, I'm sorry. South of Whitman in the Sandhills. I put that windmill in there because that's what they used for refrigeration. They had cool water pumped out of the ground. I mean, things were tough not very long ago. This is my husband's dad and his brother. He came home from World War II, and technology continues to advance. They decided that they could get around a lot quicker on the ranch, between their ranches, if they would fly. So they'd keep horses down in their summer range or anywhere, and they'd always put a couple saddles in the back of the plane, and then they'd catch their horses, and you could do the work you needed to do. My husband remembers when he was little, his dad would strip the seats out and put as many saddles and kids in as he could in a plane to go round up cattle. So this is my sorghum crop. It's not a really great picture, but last summer we planted a sorghum Sudan hybrid, a brown midrib. And so we grow sorghum for livestock feed, for forage. So what counts for us is tonnage. So I thought it was very interesting this morning when we were talking about the maturity of the plant and flowering, because we always try to cut it late in October, kind of before the time change, because it's about ready to head out then. So for us, it would be advantageous to have something that didn't mature as quickly, so we had more forage. So everybody has different goals with their crops. And this is what hay production used to look like. I mean, it was a lot of work not too long ago. This is how we feed hay today. That's how we feed that. I didn't put any pictures in of harvesting, but you know, that's all changed too. And so I guess the question is, you know, where are we going to go? Where is the future going to lead? Well, hopefully it's all happy trails and nice sunsets, and I hope the path is clear for us, but I'm not sure it is. And I do think there is a path forward. Mr. Luss talked about it this morning. I think biofuels are a very clear path forward for our farmers right now. Don Caldwell will probably visit more about that later and is more well-versed than I do, but I don't think we can talk enough about how important biofuel production is to our state and to our nation. And in the time we are in now, and the political climate that we are in now, I view it as almost a silver bullet. If we had E15 year-round, everywhere, that would solve our tariff problems for our farmers. It solves some of the inflationary problems for our consumers. You've got a better price at the pump. And it solves some of our energy problems. It provides for national security and domestic energy dominance, all while we're keeping our farmers in good shape and growing. If you want to grow milo or sorghum, or if you want to grow corn, it doesn't matter. If you want to grow soybeans. So I guess I would encourage you all to continue to push every lever you can with every person you can to continue to talk about the biofuel advantage that we have. And obviously there's many other new products that we're looking at too with that. I'd also like to give you a little quick update from the Department of Agriculture. As you all well know, we are primarily a regulatory agency, right? 90% of my time is spent on that. We do over 60,000 inspections a year. So I hope everything's going well. If you have an issue or if something is not, please speak to me and I will try and get to the bottom of that. But on another front, I want to talk about animal health. As you've heard, H5N1 has been in the news lately. I want to give you a report from Nebraska. So far this year, we have had 4 backyard flocks that have been affected for a total of 219 birds in 4 different counties. That has been the extent for Nebraska this year. We have had no dairy herds affected. We are participating in the National Milk Testing Strategy. We're doing the bulk silo testing, and so far we've had no detections there either. We have a commuter herd that's tested regularly on a weekly basis so they can move cows, and we test for clinical signs or symptoms when warranted, and we do routine surveillance testing in poultry, swine, and dairy cattle. So good news on that front. Hopefully we will move forward as we are now with a acceptable mindset for risk. And I want to assure you that we are partnering with our counterparts at DHHS and in constant contact with them. We have biweekly calls with UNMC, and everything seems to be under control so far. It's not a civilization-ending event. Let's see, biofuels and bird flu. Oh yeah, another innovation we need to visit about. LB 246 made it out of committee last night. That's one of the governor's priorities. I want to talk about cell-based meat. Please don't confuse that with plant-based meat or plant-based protein. I'm talking about bioreactor meat, cell-based meat. He wants a ban on this, and I guess I would agree with him. We instituted the rules and regs for clear labeling last fall. Those are before the Attorney General right now. And I know there are a lot of different points of view on this. One of them is about competition. We can compete. There's no reason to do that. We don't want to ban a food. And I agree with that. But this isn't about competition in my mind. As a food regulator, this is about food safety. And as I've looked into this, it's a very interesting thing on this cell-based meat. The first 2 cell lines were approved, they're chicken cell lines. And it's an odd regulatory process that doesn't happen very often. There's 2 entities involved, there's FDA and there's FSIS. And we're familiar with FSIS with our packing plants, right? If there's not an inspector there looking at every single carcass, and it's very apparent if that carcass was a pig, was a chicken, or was a beef animal, that plant doesn't run. Every carcass is inspected to make sure that it is wholesome and fit for human consumption. Okay, when we go to this bioreactor or lab-grown meat, the cell lines are approved by FDA. They are cultured and grown, and they are looking for immortalized cell lines that will reproduce and grow at a very rapid rate. And as I said, they call them immortalized. Well, in medical research, they're used for cancer research. In this case, I mean, typically something that divides and grows that rapidly is known as a tumor. So these cells are put into the bioreactor. Then when they come out of the bioreactor, the jurisdiction changes from FDA, it goes to FSIS. Well, in an interesting twist, FSIS is only looking at that plant as a manufacturing plant. So instead of having an inspector there testing the cells, looking at the product, they're only inspected once a day, once a shift. it's just a manufacturing facility. So we really don't have a level regulatory playing field there either. So I guess I would urge you to look into this and understand that it's not about competition. We can compete with anybody on the face of the planet. We have superior products. I mean, we take sunshine, water, and grass and turn it into the best tasting protein on earth, finish it with our grains. But that's not what this is about. This is about playing economic offense for the #1 industry in the state of Nebraska that provides a great market for the grains that you grow. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at this and visit with your state senator. And with that, I'll wrap up. If anybody has any questions, I would be happy to try and answer them for you.